Hey everyone, I'm Mike Lowe, and we are in Madden 24. We're going to be going through an off-season as the Arizona Cardinals here. We're on Madden with PC. We're going to be using a lot of the different PC mods, and I want to talk about a few of them right now. A lot of the mods that we'll be using you actually won't see in this video because we're just going to be going through the off-season here. But we can see the Start Today mod, which is probably the most important, and it's an awesome mod, and here's why. The Start Today mod is definitely one of the essential mods you want on Madden PC. This is kind of the latest version. This is even the one that I'm using in this franchise. It's actually newer. This is the one that was released just before the start of free agency. I mean, you cannot get any more accurate if you're looking to start just as free agency opens up and, of course, pre-draft. But it has everything, guys. This is like a brand new Madden game coming out. You don't see the retired players listed there, but rest assured, the actual players who retired in real life have retired. You'll even see news stories about that over here, which have been updated. And so you're going to just see a lot of different things there. Again, Jason Kelsey retiring. So that's one of the elements there. Of course, it includes an updated draft class with real-life players. And I swear, every time I've done a playthrough like this, it's been a little bit different, which keeps it fresh, which keeps it really interesting. So that's super cool to see. You're going to see, of course, updated statistics, updated standings. Everything here that is in the real life NFL that happened is here. Records, points scored, rushing yards, passing yards, receiving yards, all of this different stuff. Even if you look at the league history, you're going to see the award winners for Coach of the Year and so on, and Offensive Player of the Year, and of course the Super Bowl results. So it's like if Madden were to release at the start of the offseason or wherever it is that you're looking to start off from. So super, super cool there. It has updated staffs. So as you go through and look here, you're going to see coaches like Jim Harbaugh. You're going to see coaches who have been replaced or coordinators who've been promoted and so on. And so I mean, guys, if there's something that can be updated here, it's been done. It's a truly fantastic mod. Super, super impressive. And it's really just kind of breathed just a ton of new life into Madden here with the PC version. So just, again, huge shout out to that community for all that they do. It's just really, really remarkable here when you're seeing how accurate everything is in this particular mod. The next tool is the Madden Franchise Tool, or MFT. It's sometimes referred to as My Franchise Tool, and it's an awesome, awesome utility that you can use for your franchise. Now here in its basic form, it pulls out the data from your franchise. You would load up this tool, you'd load in your franchise from the PC, and then you can look at all sorts of different things, whether it's stats, whether it's free agency, the draft, and so on. Lots of information here, but perhaps most importantly, and I think where most people use this for, are the actual utilities that are built into this app. And so what's nice too is you have these different apps that we'll talk about a few of them in just a minute here, but you also have the schedule that helps to kind of show you when you'd be using these. And so what I've done so far is, because I've started in the off season, I have used this tool called Auto Match Scheme, and I ran it just at the week we just saw there, the re-signing week. And what this does, this is awesome, guys. This is something I've been begging for the Madden team to add into the game. It will take your defense, and again, we just went through coach hiring, for instance, and say you've switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3. This tool, with the push of a button, will go through the entire league, and if you have a speed rusher in a 4-3 defense who's been stuck at, like, say, left outside linebacker, or maybe they were drafted that way, it will turn them into a defensive end. It'll move them to right end. It matches up scheme to fit the particular defense that's being used, and that happens every offseason. So again, if a team changes their philosophy, it's going to match up. It's freaking awesome, and so I've used that already here. What we're seeing in games so far as we go through this offseason, this tool has been used. I think the next tool we'll end up using is here when we get to free agency week 1. We will adjust just the trade block, and what's really neat is you're going to start to see a player, like say if the Bears draft Caleb Williams, they will be putting Justin Fields on the trade block. And so we're not going to do any of the tools yet just here, but we will be using this one. And of course, as you get into the regular season, you start to use some of these different tools. So guys, I mean, just in these couple tools we've seen so far, Start Today and this Madden Franchise Tool, or the My Franchise Tool, we are seeing things that just unequivocally make the PC version of Madden far superior than anything you're seeing on console. This Cardinals team is a bit of a mess. You can see their 2023 rankings in the middle of the screen, and we can go in really any direction we'd want here in this offseason. The team has 13 draft picks in the 2024 draft. 13! That includes 3 of the top 36 picks. This team is void of talent. That's the easiest synopsis I can give. There are some players, of course, Kyler Murray, Joe Connor, and so on, but there's a lot of holes. We are not going to fix this in 1 year. And even some of these players that are serviceable pros, like a Joe Connor or a Will Hernandez, they're either on a 1-year deal, they're injury prone, or maybe both. And the injury rating matters a ton when we're looking at modded Madden on the PC. It matters in regular Madden, but even more in this environment, which I love. I love that challenge. But if you're below like an 89 or 90 injury rating, I'm not really depending on you. I don't mind if you're on the team next year because 1, we need bodies, and 2, I guess we can give it a shot and see, especially these guys on like an expiring contract after 24. But there is a lot of holes here, and that's the other reason, is I do need bodies for this team. We do have to field the team, but it's not going to be a very good team this first year. Make no mistake of that. A good example of this is free agent to be wide receiver Marquise Brown. Now, a lot of you are going to be jumping up and down saying, oh my gosh, you have tons of cap space. Sign this guy. He's got 97 speed. It's not that I don't like Marquise Brown. I just don't trust that he's going to be on the field. When we look at this injury rating of 86, that's too low. Now, if he's on the team, again, he had a 1-year contract, I'd keep him around. Or if he was on a rookie deal or something like this, yeah, sure, let's go with it. But I can't pay a guy $13 million to be unavailable for games. And this is what I worry about. I don't care about 97 speed. He has speed 0 if he's not playing. So he's a really nice player. I haven't completely crossed it off, but where I have crossed it off is in this re-sign phase. Even though I have exclusive rights to re-sign him right now, or I could have franchise tagged him or something like that, I'm not. We can always revisit this later, but I can't undo this mistake if I do it now. There were 2 players that we did re-sign during this re-sign period, and hold on to your butts because this one's really exciting, but we re-signed our punter, Blake Gillikin. We also tried to re-sign Budda Baker, but he rejected our offer that was actually what he was asking for. But because his interests just didn't really align and our team's so bad, he rejected it. So we did franchise tag him, and you can see how that works out. It actually makes him, it's a little bit more. It's like about $2 million a year more than we are going to pay him over the 2 years. But this actually makes him tradable. So that's something I'm open to. Again, he fills a hole. It's not like we have a young player behind him who's ready to step in. However, with the Madden modding community, progression is totally different. One of these guys might pop. One of these guys might end up being a 76 or something like after training camp or whatever it is. If that's the case, that makes Budda Baker very tradable, and it's something else that maybe we could try to stock up for maybe the 2025 draft, for example. Another player I'm hoping pops a little bit in the preseason is Kyler Murray. Now, he's a 77 overall, which isn't bad. He's 27 years old. But the big issue here is that he's making close to $52 million. Now, that's not a huge issue now. We have the cap space. We're not going to win anyway. I'm not terribly concerned with this. But it becomes a problem here in the next 3 seasons as we try to build this roster into something sustainable that can win football games. This could cripple us. This would not cripple us if we're talking Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or I guess a player you consider a truly top-tier player. And it's not that Kyler Murray maybe can't be that, and that's what we have to kind of see. He hasn't been awful, but he's just been above average, I guess you could say, at best in his career. To be fair, he's a former Rookie of the Year. He's made 2 Pro Bowls. Of course, he was the first pick in the draft, so there's potential there. So I'm not completely out on Kyler Murray, and like I said right now, he's going to be our quarterback this year. But it certainly creates issues here as we try to build this team because to me, he's just not worth that kind of money. So let's talk draft strategy for this team. I mentioned that we have 13 draft picks, and although we haven't even gotten into free agency, we can start to talk about the draft a little bit, but understand too that free agency, hopefully, if we do things right, is going to change that philosophy quite a bit. Looking at the draft list here, we're going to get 3 really good players out of this draft for sure, with it being 3 picks in the top 36. We have pick number 4, we have pick 27, and we have pick 36. That will come in the second round. And so this is just my favorites list. And so even if I go down to say the 36th player on this list, we have enough here that we're going to be getting some good talent. We're still going to be drafting round 1 or 2 talent into the second round. This is really, really good news. Where it actually kind of gets tricky is at that top 5 area because as we've seen before, I actually really like these quarterbacks here, but I don't know. I'm not in love with them enough where it's like, yeah, we need to replace Kyler Murray. And by the way, that's just going to create the financial issues that we talked about earlier. Now, again, if Caleb Williams somehow falls to 4, I'm going to pick him. maybe even Drake May. Jaden Daniels, maybe not. So we're looking at a Marvin Harrison as the potential pick. It's going to get really difficult if, say, like the first 3 picks go Williams, May, and then Harrison, because I don't love Jaden Daniels. I love him in real life, by the way. I don't love him here in this draft class. And so it's kind of like, oh, geez, what do we do here? Because Brock Bowers, I think, is going to be really special, but we're pretty good at tight end. It's one of the rare positions we actually have filled up there. We have a 24-year-old tight end who's already an 80 overall before the preseason kind of potential bumps that we're going to see in those younger players. And so it's an awkward position. Like, I'm actually going to be looking to possibly trade down, even though we already have a boatload of draft picks in this draft. I would love to actually end up with not just 27, but maybe 2 other picks that are in this range, because there's a lot of players here that I like with this kind of round 1 grade, including these 2 receivers that are right behind Marvin Harrison. These guys fit what we're trying to do better. I like the playmakers when we match them up with Kyler Murray. I think it kind of fits his style a little bit more. And so whether this coaching staff's around or not, I'm just still big on drafting best available player, but we are married to Kyler Murray a little bit, and I want to do what we can to make him, comfortable and put him in a position where he can succeed. So if we are able to trade down, this could be really good. I'm also going to be looking at possibly bumping up. Could we say trade like a second round pick this year for a first round next year, or a third this year for a second round next year? If there's any team that's interested in doing that, I will do that. I'll try to kick some of those draft picks to the next year, because even though we have a ton of holes, and I could certainly use some players here, and we're probably going to be drafting starters into the 3rd and maybe even 4th round on this team, it would be nice to maybe kind of spread some of that talent out a little bit. We're not going to rebuild in 1 year, so that's another option I'm looking at. It's really just kind of draft pick flexibility. So I've just advanced to week 1 of free agency. I haven't even looked at anything there just yet, but we are, of course, back into the Madden franchise tool. And this is where, according to the schedule, we're going to be running the adjust trade block. And so, again, looking here, there's nothing else that we need to adjust just yet. I think the next thing we'd be doing is after free agency, we'd auto balance rosters. And this actually goes in kind of unison with that auto match scheme I was talking about earlier. What auto balance does is, if you say have like 5 left outside linebackers and only 1 right outside linebacker, it's going to take that and just kind of adjust those and balance it a little bit more. So it'll definitely help with injuries and kind of just your roster management as you go through, because make no mistake, this mod, or these like the Start Today mod or the franchise mod that you're using, it really is going to make injuries realistic, which of course makes roster management a little challenging. So we are going to go in here and we are going to go up to the adjust trade block. We're going to click it. And again, I have my franchise save loaded, and that's going to go through and successfully adjust the trade block. At the start of free agency, I do have a trade that will be accepted by the Giants, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit before about maybe moving down in round 1, and this would put me into that kind of round 1 range. I wouldn't feel maybe guilty for passing on a top 5 talent here at pick 6, but I'd really get my pick of the litter with whatever we'd want. So we'd move down 2 spots in this year's draft, and then we would also kind of unload some of the extra picks we have this year by trading a 5th for the 3rd round pick of the Giants for next year's draft. So this draft would make a lot of sense. I haven't done it just yet. I want to see how free agency goes, because again, free agency comes, at least the bulk of it, before the draft, and so a lot can still be kind of unveiled. It's not really going to change our general philosophy of best player available during this rebuild, but it's still wise to let free agency unfold a little bit, and then we can revisit this trade with the Giants later. There are a lot of good players available in free agency, but as a team that's rebuilding, we need to be smart. So we're focused on players that are interested in being here. It's going to save us some money. We don't need to fix this overnight. So our list is just 5 guys here to start with, which is of course the limit: 3 offensive players and 2 defensive players. And so we're just going to see how it goes, including bringing Isaiah Simmons back. And there are some good players we may revisit later in free agency as well. As we advance to the first evaluation phase in free agency, we are bringing back Isaiah Simmons to the Cardinals, who of course left for 1 year after being drafted by them. He played for the Giants last year. This is exciting. We did lose out on some other players like Leonard Williams, who signs with the Texans. But that's okay. We have some other backup plans. We really didn't want to have every single player sign here. We'd be out of money. And that leaves us with 3 players still, so we'll need to add a couple more players here to the list for the second evaluation phase. And again, we have plenty of holes, we got plenty of money, but we still want to be smart about it. We're still going to be focused on players interested, just like we were in the first evaluation period. So I've added 2 players in Kenny Moore II and Charmin Gardner-Johnson to the mix here. Gardner-Johnson simply because he wants to be here. He's good. He's young. He's a fit. And it would be a bit of a risk. He has like an 87 injury rating or something like that. So again, a little lower than I want to be. But I'm okay running 3 safeties. We can definitely build an entire defense around this. And he's just too good to not be an interest. And so we're throwing him an offer. We are kind of doing the opposite here with Kenny Moore. We are so desperate at corner. I'm really hoping one of my like 71 overall corners who are like 23 maybe pop in training camp, that is, and can turn into a dependable starter. But we're going to need somebody at number 1. And again, that still leaves us some flexibility in the draft. I'm not expecting him to sign. We've offered him a boatload of money, like $17.5 million per year for a 3-year deal. So just trying to do what we can to just get some talent on this team. We have the same issue at defensive tackle, but there's just not. I mean, there are some decent defensive tackles, but to me, it's like the corner just makes sense when you look at kind of the overall. He's a year younger, he's a better player, and he's going to still cost less than Grover Stewart would. So I don't know. We're going to have a huge gap at defensive tackle. I'm certainly not somebody who drafts for need, but it's hard to just ignore that hole we're going to have here at defensive tackle. So we're about ready to run this next, I guess, evaluation period here. Nothing happened actually in the second one, so I have the exact same 5 targets, including the 3 that I had in the previous evaluation period. Well, to my surprise, Kenny Moore II has signed with us, so this is huge. This is just fills perhaps our biggest hole on this team. And that's really exciting. Also exciting is that the other 4 players here are still contemplating our offer. So we are still in the very first stage of free agency. Again, we're on the last evaluation period, so we're going to be advancing a week here shortly. But so far, so good. Got 2 decent players here to help improve the defense. Advancing to the next week, and we have 2 more signings. We have Mike Owenu, who has signed, and this gives us a ton of tackle depth, and one of these players are going to be moving to guard for sure. I was, again, just kind of threw this out there because he was young, he was interested in playing for us, and I felt like the deal was fair. This is really going to be a nice signing, I think, after this year. This year it kind of creates a bit of a logjam, but I think one of these tackles can definitely, probably one of the existing left tackles can probably move to left guard, which is a huge need, and we can just kind of use a patchwork offensive line here this first season. We also get Connor Williams, so again, this is great. Really, really good fit. I was kind of worried why he was taking so long, but that really solidifies our center position here for the next few years. So a couple really nice signings here. Still on the target list, of course, CJ GJ and Zay Jones, but we are really, really low on cap room. So it's the good news is a lot of guys have signed, and that's also the bad news is that it's really kind of eating up our cap space at this point. Well, I don't know if I've ever seen this happen to me in Madden before, but we've basically signed all of our targets for better or worse. The good news is we got everybody. Our team's a lot better. The bad news is we're left with like just under $3 million in cap room. So we do get CJ GJ here, and we also signed Zay Jones, and we still have some holes on this team, but we do have like 58 players under contract right now. We have 13 draft picks still. So we have plenty of space to kind of fill this out, but we are going to still have some gaps, especially at defensive tackle, but pretty excited. I mean, this team definitely got better. If we just kind of look at the team overall here in just a second, we've bumped it up quite a bit. Our offense is up to an 80. We're still a 78 overall. So again, we're going to be bad, but all of these signings, really all the moves we've made so far have been kind of forward looking. We're not just plugging gaps for this year or anything like this. We're definitely kind of taking the slow build approach. And so far it's been working out okay. I just selected my scouting focus players for the draft here, and we went with Dallas Turner, speed rusher on the edge there. He would be a right end for us if we were to pick him, and just really like seeing those A potentials on some of those block shed and pursuit and so on. He only has like I guess a B potential max for finesse moves, but that's what I'm really curious to see is if can he make it up with some of this other speed. He's a little undersized at the position, but there's been a lot of good players like Leonard Floyd and so on who've been in that kind of size range there that have been really dominant pass rushers. If I'm picking a guy that early in the draft, that's what I want. It's got to be a game changer who can end a series on defense for to get the ball back. So also Byron Murphy I think is probably my favorite player right now as if we end up trading down. Really, really love his ability to stop the run, but also generate pass rush up the middle. That's just, it's so valuable to see, again, as a Lions fan seeing Ndamukong Suh and Of course, the Rams are familiar with that with Aaron Donald and so on. It's completely game changing. If you can get pressure on the quarterback, that's fantastic, right? And that's what Dallas Turner would do. But if you can do it up the middle, that's even less time for the quarterback to have, and it just completely disrupts an offense. It disrupts the run game, and it's a huge priority for us as we rebuild this team. Plus, we're terribly weak at defensive tackle. Quinion Mitchell is the third player that I ended up doing a scouting focus on. I think he's the most athletic corner that I have on my favorites list, and I just want to kind of see how some of those grades pan out. I don't think I would take him 6th overall, certainly not over Byron Murphy. But if it was maybe a tie between these two guys, it could really kind of help break that tie. We are into the free agency recap phase, and that means, according to the schedule, it's time to run the adjust trade block utility and also the auto balance rosters. And the auto balance rosters one, again, just as a reminder, it's going to move players that are just maybe there's like an abundance of depth on one side, like at left outside linebacker. It'll move some guys to right. What it'll also do, though, is if either you or the CPU, say, has like a left tackle starting at left guard, like I do, because I have way too many tackles now, it will update that player's position to be a left guard. It's really important, though, as the user, if you want certain things like that to happen automatically, to maybe stay in line with the CPU or whatever, so that you don't have to do it manually, make sure your depth chart is updated before you run this. And so back into the game here, we can go in and just kind of look around and see if those changes took place. And so left tackle, we moved Paris Johnson from right to left. That was auto done by the utility. And we've moved our, previous left tackle over to left guard. Now, this is way too much money for a left guard, but again, he's already on contract. I can't cut him. It's too expensive. So this is what's happening. He's going to be our starting left guard. But guys, look at this. By doing this, we have like a really nice offensive line suddenly. So this worked out really well. Another change we made is move BJ Ojulari over to right end, which is where we like to have our speed rusher. So that's going to be nice. He's still got star dev, so even if we don't draft a guy, it's going to work out okay. I think we can live with him at right tackle, or right end, I should say, and just try to develop him this year. So we've gotten some more feedback here after doing the private workouts or the focus scouting. We're on private workouts now, but just kind of giving a recap to what we've seen. And we have some players at 100. And by the way, I need to mention the way that this utility works. You're going to see almost every single player at least at 95. And you're probably thinking, well, that seems super unrealistic. But what's cool is even at 95%, this utility and these different mods and whatnot are keeping the players very, very vague. It's definitely hard. And you could even argue maybe it's still too easy. When you see 100, you're literally seeing exactly the player. Of course, you're still not seeing the overall player. So I just wanted to mention that. It is going to look different than kind of out-of-the-box Madden, but it's still really hard. I found it much more challenging. It's super fun. It's very rewarding when you make a good pick. But guys, check this out. Byron Murphy has checked out as a top 5 player. So this is awesome news. This was a huge need. I was even considering kind of making this like a stretch pick a little bit because it was such a bad need, but this works out great. This has me thinking maybe we stay at pick number 4 and just grab Byron Murphy. The only concern here is the injury rating being C. I'm a little concerned about that, but this guy looks special. I think I'm willing to kind of take that risk and just hope his injury rating's okay. Maybe I can do some coach development to help with that. Let's just say that Williams and Murphy are gone in the top 4. I'd probably end up going with Harrison Jr. or Bowers. I don't think I'm going to waste fully scouting these guys. I'm just going to kind of hope and pray that they are indeed top 5 players. Because what I want to do is take a closer look at Malik Neighbors here. And one of the reasons is I'm really big on 3-cone drill and 20-yard shuttle. You can see those are top 4 across all receivers here in this draft class. That to me is he's going to run really clean, crisp routes. I will sacrifice speed for that. Again, as a Lions fan, we see this with Amon-Ra St. Brown. That guy's not super fast, but he can run crisp routes. And so I'm all about that. You can usually find some savings in that. It's a nice little trick, by the way, in your online leagues, too, if you're not everyone else is just obsessing over the 40 time and whatnot. And so he is I find him much better than every receiver here in the class. Of course, Harrison Jr. is a very special player, but it's not really a fit for us. Like, we're not throwing up jump balls and stuff like this with Kyler Murray. And so Malik Neighbors, I'm pretty excited about. The other players that we did scout that we got feedback on earlier, I just want to kind of show you. They weren't as promising. Drake May took a drop. We didn't scout him, though. But we did have the speed rusher, Dallas Turner, I was really excited about. He's still a good player, but I'm glad we scouted him. He's looking to be a little bit maybe late first, early second, which is great because we have a pick there at 27 as well. That can work. Same thing with Quinion Mitchell. I was really surprised by this. He looked to be the most athletic corner. I was really excited, even considering picking him as high as like 6. So definitely glad we scouted him. So having said all that, here's what we're doing with our last three. I told you about one of them. We're going to do Neighbors, and just I would almost consider doing Harrison to really get kind of a good apples and oranges, but it'd be silly because I'm not going to draft both of them. So I'm going to do that, and it'll seem a little, I don't know, I guess I'm contradicting myself here because even though I've scouted Mitchell, he didn't scout out that well. So I'm going to just try to get a really clear picture at corner. It's a huge need for us. And again, these players are good. I don't mind doing, I want to do best player available, but of course, if it can fill a need, that's going to make a lot of sense. So that's what we're doing here. These are going to be our private workouts here, and we should get some more information on these players. By the way, the mock drafts, we're looking at the most recent one. They're kind of all over the place, and I kind of like it. It's almost like how the media can just throw out some just mock drafts that are just like, what the hell, this is crazy. And so this is just all over. I do think these will be the top two picks. Drake May, maybe, if he's third. I mean, that's going to make our pick really easy. But again, they have us going with a guard here at fourth overall. That's not going to happen. Arnold, we're going to be taking a closer look at, as you just saw. So it's really interesting to see. I mean, the defensive tackle I'm wanting to take, we're probably going to be okay because he's kind of slipping to 16 here. Brock Bowers slipping to 15. I mean, we have, of course, Trey McBride at tight end, who's 24 and awesome player. But I mean, to have two tight ends, I want to run the ball, right? That's what's going to help this kind of bad passing game out, is just trying to run the ball, chew up some clock. But to have tight ends that can just dominate linebackers, dominate safeties, that is something I don't care if it's fourth overall or not. If Brock Bowers is as special as he looks, it's a consideration. I just find a defensive tackle who can put pressure on the quarterback far more important. So, but make no mistake, I'm not afraid to take a tight end at 4. If the draft kind of shows it to be, that's our only option. But anyway, you can kind of see here, I mean, Marvin Harrison falling to 22. I'm not really taking these mock drafts too seriously. They're kind of all over the place. Malik Neighbors going all the way to 24. So I don't know. It's hard to really say what's going on. And one thing I also forgot to show you is just kind of we do have a trade that took place in the league, again, using the updated trade blocks. You'll notice trades are a little slow out the gate because it takes into consideration a player's morale. And of course, in a new franchise here, even though we're starting in the offseason, the player morale is kind of set at default. But we have Lee McNeil being traded by the Lions. And if you're a Lions fan like me, you're probably freaking out going, oh my gosh, they'd never make this trade. They might. And the reason is they have a lot of cap issues coming up for the Lions in the future. A lot of young players, really expensive contracts they're going to be doing with extensions and so on. Something's got to give. And so this is not terribly unreasonable. I think it's a little early. Obviously, if the Lions were to actually trade a Liam McNeil here in the offseason, I think it'd be a huge surprise. But, hey, it's a game. We're just going with it. Well, it's just about draft time, and we got some really valuable information from our private workouts. Terrion Arnold checks out way worse than I was expecting. I was a little suspicious just because he just didn't look super athletic. I think he'll still be a decent player, but he's definitely not somebody you want to be picking in the first round. And so it's hard to not scout the helmet there. You see Alabama, you just assume he's going to be a really good player. So I'm glad we took a look at him. We could definitely not sweat him too much. And then the other corner came out a little bit better. Nate Wiggins, Clemson, 6'2", comes out as a 1-2. So again, it could definitely end up being a Panther, or I should say a Cardinal. That makes perfect sense. So again, got some good information here, but guys, we got some really good information on Neighbors. And it kind of changes our draft potentially. Neighbors comes in as a top 5 as well. So 2 players that I really, really liked. Again, this is why it's so valuable to go in and actually look at the actual player card. And so, Byron Murphy, I could see this guy looks like he's going to be able to provide some pass rush and so on. But not just the physicals here, like we talked about a second ago with the cone drill and so on, excuse me, but looking at these drills here, I could see that A pop. This was available before I even did the private workout. Was the catching came out as an A. And so that to me was like, oh wow, this is really interesting. Now again, we have a lot of B's here. So this is probably going to be an underdeveloped player. He's going to probably have like a superstar or even X Factor depth trait, but will probably be a little bit lower rated is my guess. But that's okay. This is a guy who can take the ball. Look at that ball carrier vision. He's going to be able to, catch these short passes, make some yards after catch and so on. He could be a really special player. I don't think I'm going to put him above a defensive tackle who can get to the quarterback. That to me is still going to be valuable. But Neighbors is, I think, officially our backup, and I have him right now higher than Harrison Jr. just because I see he fits the offense, what we want to do a little bit more. He's going to fit our quarterback makeup with Kyler Murray a little bit more. So that's the plan. I do think quarterback's going to go 1-2. We're going to try to get Murphy at pick 4, but if he goes 3, we're looking at Neighbors. And so it's tough to pass on these guys, but geez, guys, this isn't real life. I mean, this is the Madden draft here, and so if I get a real top 5 talent scout, it's hard to ignore that. Well, that's going to do it. I appreciate you checking out the video, and you better believe the next one's going to be the draft. So we'll have to see how it all shakes out here for the Cardinals. 13 picks, tons of holes, and we'll have a lot to talk about then. So guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for liking the video. Leave a comment if you want to chat, and I will see you soon.